Hi, I'm Christiansen, and welcome to Mel Bay's In the Pocket series. This video from the In the Pocket series is going to deal with the concepts of chordal harmony, chords that are built in fourths, and some of the application and techniques that are used for these voicings to work well in trio and quartet settings. All of the videos that are in this In the Pocket series have been geared towards helping guitar players play well with other musicians, especially a bass player and a drummer. The pocket being that groove and that feeling that kind of occurs when the band is gelling well. So all of the concepts that are taught here today, the underlying theme is going to be play in the pocket, play with a good time feel, and one of the things that I like to do when I'm teaching is, if it's a new harmonic or theoretical concept, keep the rhythmic aspect or the technical aspect of things fairly easy. With all of my private students and all the teaching I've done, I always think it's a great idea when introducing a new concept to keep everything simple except for the new concept. So we're going to be using a lot of simple rhythmic phrases, simple rhythmic ideas to help us get this concept of chords in fourths under our fingers, and frankly, sometimes the most simple rhythmic phrases when you're comping or playing these type of chords with a group, the simpler the rhythmic patterns are, the better they're going to come across anyway, and it creates a little more freedom for the soloist. But before we get started, let's go ahead and tune our guitars with the first string open, E. Second string open, B. Third string open, G. Fourth string open, D. Fifth string open, A. And sixth string open, E. Great. Now that we're tuned up, we can go ahead and get started. As I mentioned a little earlier, we're going to be talking about the concept of chords built in fourths. And this is often referred to as chordal harmony. Most of the chords that the guitarists learn at the beginning of their study of music are chords that are built on the concept of thirds, where you take a major scale and then you stack every other note to make either triads or seventh chords or ninth chords, and etc. Like if, for example, a C major chord built from the C major scale would have the notes C, E, and G, and they would be arranged so that you could play a voicing, like built-in thirds. Taking that one step further, a seventh chord, major seventh chord, C, E, G, B. Taking it a little step further, ninth, C, E, G, B, D, and so on. So it's stacking every other note. With the concept of chordal harmony, instead of thirds, we're building chords with the interval of a fourth. And to help us to understand this and concept and visualize it and apply it to the guitar, learning the theory first and then seeing some chord patterns, I have a few visual aids that are going to help us. We'll use those to learn the patterns, and then we'll play them on the guitar, and then we'll apply them with the bass and the drummer. And hopefully come up with some great comping ideas that you can use on your next gig. What we have here is a dry erase magnetic board that I have prepared in a way that lets us visualize the guitar fretboard in a number of different ways. This first section of the board is a vertical, or rather a horizontal view of the guitar neck and fingerboard. First string on the top, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth strings. So it's almost like you're looking at a piece of tab paper. Instead of using numbers for the to indicate the frets, we actually have the frets drawn in. So this would be first fret, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on up the neck. These diagrams down here are vertical diagrams. So this would be string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, both of these patterns. We also have prepared here some an area for writing in standard notation. If we get talking about some theory, and I'm so inclined, we might write out some stuff here. But mostly, what we're going to use is just this horizontal fretboard diagram. Now the magnetic pieces that I have here that are colored, when we put those on a string, that will indicate where your fingers are supposed to be played as we learn some of these voicings. Up here above, we have basically the theory behind chordal harmony laid out, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. The main thing is that what we want to do is learn the theory for this chordal harmony, get it into our heads, and then start to visualize it as chord patterns on the guitar. I mean, the real strength of the guitar is that once we learn the shape of something, we can move it basically into any key. The guitar is a great instrument for learning things in multiple keys, because I would say almost all of the patterns that we learn, especially those that don't utilize open strings, are movable patterns. Okay, so moving back up here to the top of the board, what I've done is I've written out in black the C major scale, the notes in the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. The reason that I've picked the key of C is because there's no sharps or flats, and it's going to be very easy for us to all visualize the natural notes on the fretboards from the open fret or first fret all the way up to the 12th fret, where things start over again. And also, we don't have to worry about any of the sharps or flats, or speaking with sharps or flats as we talk about the theory. So chordal harmony basically is just stacking every fourth note to create a chord. So in the case of C, and I have written these out below in blue, the notes that would be part of chordal harmony for each chord. So the first degree of the scale, which is C, the notes would be C, F, B, E, and A. Okay, second chord, D, G, C, F, and B. So you can see what I've done. We'll move back to C. C, F, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we were to continue on with this written out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. That's how we figured these chords out. But really, they're very easy to see, and actually, once you get the first voicing figured out, it's very easy to move up the fretboard, because you just move to the next scale tone. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that in just a moment. One of the beauties of chordal harmony, though, is that the chords are, I guess for lack of a better word, they're a little ambiguous. They don't really only function as one chord. All of these chords here used in chordal harmony have multiple functions, which means that they can be played in a lot of different situations. If the bass player is walking just over a C major chord, in theory, I can really play any one of these chordally voiced or fourth voiced chords. If you notice, of course I could play this. I mean, it has the lowest note is a C, C, F, B, E, and A. If we were to give that that chord a title based on what we know about harmony built in thirds, well, we'd have a fourth, and then B is a major seventh. So far we have like a major seventh suspended chord. There's the third, and A is the 6th. So it's almost like a major 13 chord. It has that suspended sound on the in the inside of the voicing. Well, if we were to look over here, this D, even though this is the 2 chord, because it has a C in it, it could also function as some kind of C major chord and could be played over a C major bass line or a C major chord. We would have C, there's that 4th again, so we'd have some kind of suspension or 11 in there. B, which is the major 7th, G, so far I've got a 1, a major 7, a 4th, a 5th, and a 9th. So it's going to sound like an 11th chord, like a C11, if we were to give it a name based on our tertial harmony, or harmony built in thirds. Well, we see we still have a C down here. I've got a 5th here with the G, even though this is the lowest note in the chord is an E. We've got C, E, which is the 3rd, 5th, which is G, D, which is a 9th, and this A, which is the 6th. So what I have here, C major chord with a 6 and a 9, so it would be C6, 9, and so on. I mean, we could label all of these chords based on every degree of the scale, and in that way it becomes actually kind of a fun type of harmony to play around with, and it makes it suited perfect for playing modal tunes. If I have a tune that is based on the Dorian mode, let's say a D minor progression, or D minor 7, I could literally draw, because we know that the Dorian mode is based on the 2nd degree of a major scale, that every one of these chords I could use in some kind of comping pattern to play around that D minor 7 chord. Okay, let's go ahead and start to stack these chords here on this fretboard diagram. I'm going to, even though up here above this diagram I've listed 5 notes, so I'm only going to stack four notes at a time. So all I'll be doing here is C, F, B, and E. Now that gives me my first voicing, and really if you look at it, I mean, it's pretty close to a major 7 chord. I mean, there would be a C major 7 chord that we're all familiar with. The only thing that's really changing is I'm pushing that G down to the F. That's giving me a 4th voicing. All perfect 4ths, except for between F and B. That's a tritone, but it still is the interval of a 4th. It's a sharp 4, but it comes directly from stacking these notes in 4ths from the major scale. There's our first voicing. Next voicing would be D, G, C, and F. And as I'm laying these magnets down, you should be fingering these at home and playing and getting used to this sound. Now the way I finger this, I just lay my first finger across this and I use fingers 2 and 3 here. Sometimes I'll use 4 also. That's up to you. You can decide. Next chord, that D minor. If you look at it, it looks a lot like it could be a D minor 7 of some kind, but it has this 4th in it. Next chord, E, A, D, and G. Finger to this one, I just do a bar across, and my second finger here. Bar with one finger here. Same exact voicing. Just up 2 frets. 4th voicing, F to B, B to E, and E to A. Now that's the chord built on our 4th degree of the scale, has an F in the bottom. If you look at it, it looks very much like a F major 7 sharp 11. You know, there's F major 7 right there. It's just coming down a fret. Some people would also look at that and think, you know, they would see like a G, some kind of G9 or a G13 in there, or a G dominant of some kind. This is a great voicing, and as I said, you will find out as you delve more into the chordal harmony concept that many of these chords can function as other chords rather than just what's in the bass note. Okay, so this is our chord build on the 4th degree of the scale. Here we have G, C, F, and B. G, it's got that fourth in there. Major third, dominant seventh. It's kind of functioning, you know, just to the eye as some kind of a dominant seventh chord, but with a suspension in there. Next one, A, D, G. And C. And finalizing the full octave here with B, E, A, and D. So here we go. I'm going to play these very slow. C in the bass, D in the bass, E in the bass, F in the bass, G in the bass, A in the bass, B in the bass. If I wanted to continue up, C. Now this is only one way of stacking them, okay? We could also move in a bunch of different directions. I mean, we could, you know, technically, I mean, we could have this chord. I'm just going to do this for purposes. I mean, there is the full range of the guitar using chords that are stacked in four. So I would have G, C, F, B, E, and A. You know, really on guitar, they sound, actually that's a pretty nice chord, but it might be a little bit muddy for the situations that you're going to use it in. Like I was saying before, I mean, these chords work really great in trio, quartet, or quintet settings, and great over modal tunes. That might be just a little bit muddy for what we're using. So I typically only use 3 or 4 notes in these voicings. So what I could also do is, instead, you know, the voicing we had before was using C, F, B, and E here on the top. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go over and play with the rhythm section, and they're going to just maybe do kind of a vamp or a modal vamp in D minor, and I'm going to apply all of these chords and you can play them with me so we can hear how they sound and relate to a one-chord vamp. Okay, the rhythm section is going to play a D minor 7 vamp. You know, much like many of the modal tunes that we all will be required to play at some point in our careers. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play these voicings, move them up diatonically so that you can hear what they sound like as they're played against a modal background. And you should play these with me also. So we're going to just play like C. The lowest note is C with this 4th voicing. We'll do just whole notes, or half notes rather. Then we'll move back down. Okay, that's what we're going to do over the background. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here we go. We're going to start off with the lowest note of C and play. Going backwards. Okay. Now we did use whole notes on there, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And that's a great exercise to get used to seeing how these notes or these chords relate to each other in one key. Now we're going to do the same thing over a G7 vamp. Now we know that D minor 7 and G7 come from the same scale, but even the modal vamp will sound different, but these chords will still work over this progression. So here we go, G7. 1, 2, A 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll let him get started. Here's our root. Okay, here we go with the chord. Okay, now that we have now that we've practiced and we've mastered these chords in the playing them diatonically, we're just going to mix a few of these up and put them with some kind of simple rhythm, playing in the pocket with the bass player and the drummer, and make a nice comping, I guess, a background for a soloist to play over, just using 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 of these voicings, but I'll kind of talk us through them. And the note that I'll be saying is the note that's in the bass. So same thing for the rhythm section. They're going to be playing over G7, just the vamp, and we're going to be using, let's just use we'll use just a dotted quarter followed by an 8th rhythm. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. So when I'm playing on the down, I'm going to try to link up with the bass player as much as I can, find that pocket that he's playing in, put my chords there, and also not have my my syncopated note or the end of 2 sound too rushed or premature. I want to kind of lay it back a little bit so that it doesn't feel too on top of the beat or too rushed. Okay, here we go with the G7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now right now I'm just playing the chord that has D as the lowest note. Now I'm going to move up. So you can see it's kind of fun actually to practice sequencing the scale, and I did play one kind of lemon chord in there, but you know, if you resolve it right, actually that could be the hippest thing that you end up playing all night. Okay, so C, I was kind of sequencing. If you remember, I was going. So I'm playing the F to the E, then I was coming back with the C to the D. Now that's just a really simple chord movement, but the melody, what the listener's going to hear, is a da-da, ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. And all of these kind of nice little ideas are going to sound great with it. You could do it with any chord. As simple and mundane as that sounds, it really creates a nice background for a soloist to play over. I mean, it's almost you're doing the same kind of thing as what the horn section would be doing if they were riffing behind the soloist. Okay, we're going to now move along and go back over to the board and look at a couple different voicings, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more exercises with the group. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this bottom note, we're going to remove it. So it's no longer going to be a C here. We're not even going to play this string. And we're going to continue with these notes, not even playing the C, but F, B, E, and A. And if you look, really what that's going to give us is F, B, E, and A here, just voiced down a little bit lower. So this is the same sounding chord as we have actually right here. It's just another place to play it on the guitar. So we're going to do that with all of these voicings. This one is now G, C, F, and B. This is now A, D, G, and C. And we're going to continue this process all the way up. Okay, so we could use these voicings the same way that we just used the others, but now we're going to have this voicing here, 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 here. Now you may notice some of these look very familiar to us. I mean, we've seen these as like 6/9 chords. That kind of looks like a dominant 7th chord in a lot of ways that we have seen numerous times. So learn these voicings the same way that we practiced earlier. In fact, there's no substitute really for learning voicings on guitar than just playing them diatonically. Play them here, move up the neck. Those are our voicings. Let's go play them with the trio a little bit, just so we can practice them diatonically and hear how they sound against the background. Once again, here's the voicings that we're going to be using. Here's the first one, moving them up diatonically. This pattern repeated. New pattern, back to this pattern. The rhythm that we're going to use is going to be this one. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to play 1, 2, and 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I guess it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll just move them up and down diatonically. Okay, with a G7 background. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a good workout again, just like we were doing these chords diatonically. We're going to play these diatonically. And actually, it might not be a bad idea if you practice the shift, so you can play down in a lower position. And so on, to master these voicings all over the guitar. We're going to move back to the board now and talk about a couple other concepts with voicings and some kind of tricks that we can use to get more out of these fourth voicings regular than just have them stacked in fourths. Because really the concepts of inversion and also bumping things up an octave like we do in other chords to make our voicings sound a little bit more colorful, all work with Quartal harmony as well, and that's what we're going to approach next. All right, we just got done playing voicings that use strings 4, 3, 2, and 1, and really at this point I should probably say that also just the inside notes of any of these voicings work very nicely. I mean, we've been playing 4, 4 notes for every voicing, but frankly, I mean, a lot of the time when I use them, I might only play three of the inside notes, whether that be voiced on the starting with the 5th string, one played down here or played here, or even just played in this position. But one of the tricks that's kind of fun with these, and it changes the sound of the 4th voicing a little bit. Let's imagine that below this C, let me get a green magnet here, that we started actually this 4th voicing with G in the bass, G, C, F, B, and E. Well, we could displace this note, and we could put it here on the top. So really I'd have C, F, B, E, and then G. Now that starts to make that 4th voicing sound a little more tonal. I mean, that's starting to sound a lot like that C major 7 that we know. So even though it's technically a 4th voicing, it starts to give it the sound of having a tonal center a little more. It's not quite as ambiguous. We could do the same thing with all of these voicings, just keeping true here with our color, moving to the next diatonic note from G to A, which would be a continuation of this chord if we had written it out. Sorry, wrong color. Putting the B note here with this voicing right here, we could put a C in there, D here, and E here. This one gets a little tricky. That's not the easiest voicing for the 4th. Now remember, what I'm doing here is I'm just imagining that this 1st string is really the note that would be on the 6th string if we were voicing these in 4th down low. I'm moving it up an octave. I'm transferring it from the 6th string to the 1st string up 2 octaves. Yeah. Now some of these voicings, they might not work all that well as far as fingering. This is the one that's kind of a barren, and to tell you the truth, I don't ever really use this particular voicing. The one where we have B, E, A, D, and F. I don't usually play that. If I want the F in there in that chord somehow, I'll probably leave out the B and not include this just for fingering reasons. But what we have here is this C chord, or rather the Quartal voicing, starting with C in the bass. So like minor, these are like major 7 suspended, D minor 7 suspended, E minor 7 suspended, F major 7 sharp 11. It's kind of like a G7 suspended, A minor 7 suspended. This one is the one, because of the fingering, I would usually just play something like this, or maybe skip. See, that's where our minor 7 flat 5 chord is coming from also. But like I mentioned earlier, I usually don't deal with that fingering. So this is another way that we can organize our 4th voicings on guitar. Okay, we're going to start over again here with kind of a clean slate. We're going to build the chords, build in 4ths again, and we're going to talk about the concept of inversion. And really, all we're going to be doing. Let's take a chord, for example, that starts with G. Next note would be C, and the next note would be F. Okay, now on guitar, that's a very easy chord to play. Just lay your 1st finger across the 3rd fret, and that works out fine. But really, what we can do to create a little bit more interesting voicing with this is to take the note that's here on the 6th string, this G, and we can bump it up an octave. Now, what that's going to do in this particular position is make that an open string. So now, my voicings, instead of being pure 4th voicings, are C, F, and G. So I actually have a major 2nd in the voicing. So there's a little bit, it's kind of interesting too, because it's very dissonant. If those are alone, but you just have that one note that's down, I guess down a 5th or up a 4th, you end up with a very nice sounding chord when it's put together. If we were going to approach this with each of these chords, A, D, and G, I would just simply take the A and move it up. Now that looks like a little bit of a stretch, but it's really not that bad if you finger it with fingers 3, 4, and 1. And really, I guess the pleasure of hearing that chord is worth the stretch to me. I like this. So now we have this chord, this chord. Next chord voicing that we have, I'll actually use a different color, would have been B, E, and A. So I would just move that B up an octave and put it on the third string. So all these voicings that we're talking about right now are strings 5, 4, and 3. That's the next voicing that we have. Going to have a C, F, and C, F, and a B note here. This one becomes a little interesting. If you notice, it's not vertically stacked, so we're going to have to take this C note and bump it up. That one's going to give us a little bit of a stretch. I use fingers 3, 4, and 1. Okay, next voicing. C would have been D, G, C. Back to vertical. I'm going to bump that up an octave. So I have G, C, and then the D down here. Build the chord first in the closed position, I guess you could say. E, A, and D. Take that E, bump it up an octave. Gives us this voicing. Finally, the last one is F, B, and E. Going to take that F. I'm going to bump it up. Here's the biggest stretch that we're going to have with the fourth voicings, actually. I have B, E, F. Now, in this particular key, it's not so bad because our frets get skinnier as we move up. So it actually makes it more, it's possible to play this chord. It's as easy to play this chord as it was to play this chord down here. There are some other keys. Now remember, you're going to be working all of these ideas around 12, in all 12 keys. There will be some keys where, where this chord is going to, where it's going to present a bit of a problem. But to me, it's really worth the stretch. I mean, these are really nice sounding and unique sounding voicings. To me, this is where the guitar starts to sound like some of the more modern, or the guitar starts to sound a little bit more modern, like some of the piano players that we should all be, listening to and learning from. McCoy Tyner, Bill Evans, those type of players. Applying this to the guitar, it's going to take some work, but the rewards and the benefits from it are really going to be worth it. So just practicing these, we have this chord down here that now has C in the bass, D. Now we have it with the E, F, G in the bass, A. There's one with B, and starting over with B. Now the great thing about this, and we're not going to go into it with all of the chords, but we'll do it down here in just in the bottom position. Really, we could do this. Actually, we'll start here with this chord as if it was the D rooted. So we have D, G, and A. Okay. Now we could also start a chord here on the D, G, and C. And we could do the same. We could follow the same process, I guess, of transfer or inversion, whatever you want to call it. And we could play a voicing that would look like this. So we'd have G, C, and D. We used to have D, G, and C, but I'm bumping that D up an octave. Okay. Could do the same type of thing. We could start off here with a D, a G, C, and F chord, and I could bump up that G an octave. And I could continue this process for all of these positions and come up with these inverted chords. So let's go back and play some of these with the rhythm section. Okay, these examples will be over a D minor walking bass line, and we'll apply these voicings to that chord progression. Going over them again. Here's it with the root on D, E, F, G, A, stretch on B, and back to the C. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to start here on the D. Back down. Here we go, D. Go up. Stretch. Here we go, backwards now. Now, while these exercises might seem kind of boring, really what they're doing is making sure that you understand and can visualize each of the chords in this using this concept and these principles. And it's your job to work them out in all 12 keys and see how they relate. These fingerings relate to all 12 keys. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to play these upper different type of voicing now. And rather than go to the board, I'll just explain it here using the guitar because it's basically the same kind of concept except backwards. Let's say that I had a voicing that started here. We know that this was our voicing that started here with the C, but if we move backwards a little bit, started fourth voicing using the C major scale, but we start on E, so it's E, A, D, and G. Okay, or rather, just 3 notes. Let's just do A, D, and G. One of the things that we can do with this note is take the D now, instead of moving a note up, we'll drop it an octave. So we're going to have a fourth drop voice. So it would be now, we would have D, A, and G. Okay, now if we followed that, these are the fingerings that we would end up with for each of the chords in C. So we would have this chord moving up, moving up. Now we're going to have a stretch because B is the next diatonic note. We were on A, B. Now we're going to have another stretch here. And then we're back to where we started. So there's our voicings. Now, what's kind of interesting, when we did the inversion, or we raised a note an octave, we ended up with a cluster on the top 2 strings that we were playing. With this, we end up with the cluster down below. So another way that you could look at it is, we started off with this voicing. We bumped this up an octave, and we got this. If we take this and we bump it up yet another octave, we would get the same voicing. There's 2 ways of approaching these chords. Now, with some of these shapes, especially the 3-note shapes, you may have noticed that we really have 2 shapes that we deal with. We have this shape, which ends up being this. We have this shape, which ends up being the same. Then we end up with this shape, which ends up being with the stretch. This shape puts us back to here, same. And so on. So the beauty of the fourth voicings is we have a number of different shapes on guitar, or rather a number of chords in the key on the guitar that end up being very similar without much change. we've been applying all of these chords to modal situations. It's also very possible to apply these fourth voicings over progressions that might be like a 2-5-1, a standard progression that everybody needs to know inside and out. Over in jazz standards, where they appear constantly. And really what it would be up to you to do is to figure out some of these voicings that really work well together. Like I might start off with D minor. Let's say, first of all, the 2-5 in the key of C is D minor to G7. And then, you know, if it resolved, it would go to C major 7. We're just going to deal with the 2-5 for right now. But I might start off with just a fourth voicing with D minor. And then I might move down and play this C voicing, because to me, really what I'm visualizing, and many of you will already know this, I mean, I'm kind of seeing that G7 chord, but it just has this C instead of a B or a skip. Looks like a G13, and then I can resolve to a C major chord. So I'd be like D minor 7 sus, or the fourth voicing, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And really just by adding that G in that chord, I get the sound of some kind of resolution. I could, you know, messing with this a little bit more, I could start off here with that D minor 7 for a 2-5. I could start here, then I could go down to the C major 7. So here I was playing a fourth voicing like this. Now I'm going to let this note carry me down. This chord is functioning as that G7 chord again to C. So I'll do that again slow for you. 1. And actually what I kind of alluded to there was not playing a full voicing. Now see, if you had a bass player that was playing a 2-5, you know, a long 2-5, just key of C, so D minor to G7 to C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a D minor 7, G7. Now that was traditional way of playing it. Now I'm going to play it with the fourth voicing. I'll end up on the C major 7 chord if I want. Here's another one, D minor 7. There's a fourth voicing, even though that's one that we would typically play. Here we try another one, and we'll go up higher. Used a couple of substitutions in there. Okay, so really what I did there on this one is I started off, I think, with this voicing, which was one of my inverted or my dropped voicings, and then I came up here and I played this. So my melody was da ba da da. So over that 2-5, functioning as a D minor, G7 with a sus in it, and then I'm playing, really it's like an E minor 7 sus, but really what it also is a C6-9 chord. So I'm getting kind of a nice blend of chords in here. Let's try that one again with the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. I could do my little trick if you notice there. That time I put the B on the top. Well, that's coming out of the fourth voicing also. I mean, the possibilities with the Quartal harmony is really, I mean, it's just fantastic. It's so much fun because these chords function. They have so much multifunction is really what I should say, is that organizing it can just be a riot. The more you start to alter your chords too, I mean, you might use a fourth voicing, let's say a D minor 7, and then look and say, okay, well, what, you know, the seventh chord is maybe the most altered and colored chord in jazz. how could I use my fourth voicing to lead into a highly altered G7 chord and resolve to a C major 7? Well, I mean, for example, we could take this. We could take that D minor 7 chord, and if I just move everything up, I end up with a really fantastic G7 chord. Really, it ends up being a sharp 5, D sharp, flat 9, A flat, C sharp, which is the sharp 11, and the 7th in there. So I have this. And then I'm going to carry that motion up and play that C 6 9 again. So let's hear what that one sounds like with just the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. Carrying it up even further. Now that's a nice sounding 2-5. All we utilized was fourth voicing and altered dominant voicing, carried through to that C major 7. Even though we're not playing C in the root, it still implies C major 7 or C 6 9 is really what the chord is. Here's another one that we could try that'll move backwards. D minor 7 sus. That's going to be a G with a flat 5 and an 11 and the dominant 7 in there. And then maybe I will play that fourth voice, and so it's like C major 11. Let's try that one. Hear how that one sounds with bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit dark. I mean, some of these voicings, might be a little harsh on the ears at times too. And that's really the beautiful thing about music and learning all these techniques. You can pick and choose what you want to use and what you want to discard. We'll try one other one that I really get a kick out of. This is a D minor 7. We'll start here in the same place. We're going to come up to this voicing. It's kind of like G13, F, B, E, and G, but we're going to make a 13 flat 9, create a little more tension. Then we're going to resolve down. I can put that major 7 on the top or just leave it off. So this will be my chords. Okay, well, let's try that one with the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting something like that in the pocket with the drummer and the bass player. We'll do 2 long 2-5s, and we'll end on the C 6 9. But I'll put in some kind of nice rhythmic thing. You can see what it sounds like the way I really apply it, rather than having it be a droning chord. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the first one that we played. I'll do it one more time. Do the same thing now, two times through, putting some kind of nice rhythmic phrase to it with the second voicing that we used with the altered dominant chord. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, that G13 flat 9 that we played, coming from the same D minor 7 sus chord. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. So really, I mean, it's kind of the same type of thing that you may have found with chords built in thirds or tertial harmony, is that you think, oh my gosh, the possibilities are almost limitless. Well, yes, I mean, they really are. I mean, this chord right here, we went 3 different directions. And came up with 3 2-5 progressions that ended up sounding wonderful. Well, what if I used this voicing? I mean, boy, you could play with this all day. What I'm really hoping that this video has done is explain the concept of chordal harmony enough to you, at least as it's applied to the major scale. I've explained it well enough that you will be motivated to figure out these voicings, master them, be able to visualize them on the guitar in all 12 keys, in all of the positions. Now, this is not an easy undertaking. I mean, really what you've got in this hour video is enough material to practice for quite some time. These are concepts that me and many of my colleagues who are great players are still working on and still finding possibilities. I'm not sure you ever really truly master or climb the top of the mountain when it comes to harmony. There's always something else to learn and something else to apply. What we're going to do now is provide you with a couple of play-alongs so that you can practice these voicings and this material on your own. First one that we're going to do is going to be a G dominant seventh, and then we'll do that for just a few minutes so you can practice the chords which we have been talking about in the key of C, and then we'll move it up. We'll do a play along that uses a C dominant seventh. So that would be utilizing chords that were based on the F major scale. So if you have to, write out the F major scale and stack the chords in fourths and start to apply them to your guitar and see how these would work in two different keys. Okay, G7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now move these chords to the key of F, and the chord is going to be C7 that we're playing over. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We hope that you've enjoyed and gotten quite a bit out of this DVD dealing with Quartal harmony and applying it in the pocket with a group. Special thanks to Emmanuel Harold on drums and Jay Farmer on bass for giving us some really, really nice time and grooves to apply all of this harmonic knowledge to. As just in conclusion, I'd say that being able to apply these fourth voicings is just one more step in becoming a complete guitarist. Having this in your bag of tricks along with everything else is very important. Always keeping the main focus on playing as a group. No matter how much knowledge you have, nobody cares, frankly. None of your listeners will care if it doesn't feel good to them. And so the key is to always play with good time, always to play together as a group and be sensitive to what the others are doing. The other thing I was going to briefly mention about fourth voicings, we have talked about fourth voicings only as taken from the major scale, drawing from the harmonic minor and also the melodic minor scale would be the next step in improving or enhancing or completing your knowledge and application of Quartal harmony. So once again, we hope that you enjoyed the video and that there was a lot of information that you'll be able to use. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.